Okay. Uh, review is never bad, and technical difficulties made it so that our friend Julia has missed a lot. So we're going to start back at the previous slide. Anybody see my clicker? Look around the room.
Sure it's not one of your 10-foot pockets?
There it is. Alright, so this is, I know, the previous slide, but to go through it again real quick so it's up there for you and Julia in case you missed. Anything on there? We saw these videos, right? Questions on, listen, life from non-life is sacred doctrine of secularism, because there can't be any other explanation for life, because that would include some metaphysical, that would include something besides the material world, and that can't be. They have to totally eradicate the notion that there's a non-material world. Before we put this list up yesterday, have you ever heard of any of these people before? Obviously, you've heard of, number one, Charles Darwin. But do you really understand how influential Darwin's work has been for the last 150 years, not just in biology, but in many other disciplines? His idea of biological evolution then plays a part, and did we talk about that yesterday? This whole survival of the fittest idea, and how that plays out socially then. If you really believe in Darwinian evolution, then as humans, and our endeavor to be as progressive and make as much progress as we can as a species, then part of that would play out socially, how we take care of each other. So if we understand that some people are at a disadvantage, well, then we need to do something about it. And we didn't get much into the economics, but that plays in because that explains a lot of how we got to $33.6 trillion in debt. Because we as the secular worldview says that we as humans can fix the world. And what's always the solution to fixing something? Hello? What's always the solution? Money, right? So is it Canfield? It's got the big levy. Anybody from Canfield? Isn't there a levy for schools? Yeah? Anybody? There's people from Canfield here. Isn't there a big, money levy in Canfield for schools?
Yeah.
Don't they want to build a new school? Because obviously if you have a new building, the education's going to be better. Didn't you know that? What needs to happen with education is we just need to spend more money. Because that worked 10 years ago, didn't it? Oh no, the testing scores went up. No, 20 years ago it worked. No. So my whole adult life and before that, the solution's always we can fix whatever's ailing us with money. Oops. How about Nietzsche? Had anybody heard of him before yesterday? This guy, very influential in the modern world. By the way, give me a year that would be included in the modern world. Just throw out a year. Go ahead, Isaac. See the wheels turn. Just throw out any year that would be considered modern. The modern world. No, what are we living in now? What's we're living in the postmodern world. So how did we get this term postmodern? Well, because we are out of the modern age and we're in the postmodern age. So Nietzsche was very influential, turn of the century, the previous century, late 1800s, early 1900s, right? So these are all products of what period of history that you learned about probably more than twice in your career. There is a major era of history called, starts with an E. It's already in your notes. What? The Enlightenment. These are all products of that, and second, third generation, where, hey, we've been enlightened as humans. We're out of the dark ages in the light, not the light that we know. We're in the light of human knowledge, and these people are paragons of, they have control. Listen, these people, you need to know these names. How many encountered them already in CCP? How many have already seen these names? A couple people in the other class have seen this. Freud, Freud dominated psychology for a long time, still very influential. We mentioned yesterday with Freud, it's about unlocking the unconscious mind. How do we get it? We can solve our problems, and then we can be problem solvers in the world, because it's the unconscious mind. It's the things that we're not consciously thinking about. The unconscious mind affects how the rest of our life plays out. We need to unlock that, analyze it, and then we can fix our life. And of course, everything goes back to Father, or everything somehow related to sex. Have you encountered that? Someone said, is that what it's taught? How it's taught?
Well, I took it at school, but yeah.
Doesn't that dominate the discussion? So Nietzsche, though, back to him. Get rid of this idea of traditional morality. Go down to, what's up? All right, on the next slide. But Nietzsche would say, 10 Commandments, repressive. You got to get rid of that morality based on Judeo-Christianity, the biblical morality. That's holding us back. By the way, there's another period of history in U.S. history you learn. There's the Enlightenment in world history. And then in U.S. history, what's that era known as? Late 1800s, early 1900s, starts with a P. Progressive era, right? What could be wrong with progress, right? Have you ever thought that? We label this movement progressive, and is anybody against progress? Well, what are we progressing away from? We're progressing away from traditional biblical values. We're progressing away from constitutional principles into the modern, or now postmodern world. John Dewey, you've had him in not just this class, you had him last year, you have him in U.S. history. What's he all about? Why does this name keep popping up? John Dewey, the father of modern public education. Because, hey, teaching the 3 R's is good, but we need to do more than that. We need to socialize children, secularize children into our version of what the narrative of the world should be. Make sense? What are the 3 R's, by the way? There was no one in first period that knew what the 3 R's were. Mr. Bob, can you believe that? 3 R's. By the way, only one of them starts with an R. What do people mean? When people talk about the basics of education, and John Dewey was like, hey, he likes knowledge, but we got to get away from just teaching the 3 R's. We got to socialize people into, the new humanist way of thinking. He would have been a signer of the Humanist Manifesto in 1933. Listen, this stuff didn't just happen in a vacuum. All of these changes that have happened in the world before my lifetime, in my lifetime, and now in your lifetime, and by the way, it keeps getting incrementally accelerating as we go. They didn't happen in a vacuum. These things have happened because people set out to make them happen. This Humanist Manifesto in 1933, what are the 3 R's? Only one starts with an R. Go ahead. Reading, writing, and arithmetic. Those are the basics of education, right? All children need to learn how to read. All children need to learn how to write, to communicate. All children need to learn math, arithmetic. Get it, Sam? Reading, writing, arithmetic. So you put a little apostrophe before the other 2 R's. Pick it up when I'm laying down. I think that means yes. One blink means yes. These people might not be as well known to you. Maybe Richard Dawkins stands out, but Bertrand Russell, Paul Kurtz, Christopher Hitchens, well known. If you go on internet, you can find Christians and atheists debating. People like Christopher Hitchens wants to do that a lot because, of course, they think they're going to defeat the Christian in a debate, right? Because they are superior-minded, and Christians, we're just people that live on blind faith. This is how they see you. Even if you don't go to college and you're out there in the world, when you encounter people that are not Christian, if they are atheist or they're secularist, they're going to see you as, they're going to automatically think you're not as intelligent. What's so interesting with Will? They're going to see you as not as intelligent because you're just a Christian. You just live by faith. By the end of this, you're going to know and you're going to be able to understand that they live by faith. Combined with last year, I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. Secularism is a religion. All right, so we Did we get this yet? We start this? So we looked at general revelation, special revelation, and now with this worldview, we look at how do they see man and our relationship with God. We already talked about that with Revelation. What's wrong with us? And then, how shall we then live? From the secularist point of view. Well, since man is an evolutionary being, we are soulless, spiritless, just a mind and a body. We're just DNA machines. Everything, including the mind, again, hard to understand. We know that the brain is physical, the mind is not, right? But to them, no, the mind's even physical, because the mind's just a product of the firing and the synapses in the brain that create the thoughts that we think are somehow not physical, but they're really just products of physical, so everything's physical. Evolution leading to transhumanism. In italics, that's a thing. The gist of this so far, according to secularists, is humans are what? What are we as humans, as far as species in the world? Yeah. Go ahead. We're like the top of the food chain, right? We are the superior beings on earth, and therefore we have a certain responsibility, right? So, see how this kind of like plays itself out. Humans, we should only rely on human intellect. We don't need to worry about this God thing, because there is no spirit world, and we don't have souls. Landon knows that he's not a physical being with a soul. He knows he's actually a soul that's occupying this physical vessel right now. Right? I pray that you really believe that. That you are actually who you really are. You are a soul that happens to be occupying this physicality right now. They're saying, no, you don't. Not only are you not a body with a soul, you don't even. There is no spirit, no soul. And as far as their evolutionary process, humans being the top of the food chain, I guess the ultimate goal is to go beyond humans. This is a real thing. I've seen documentaries that there are people out there right now working on creating a we're not only living in a post-modern world, we're not living just in what they want to create as a post-Christian or theological world. They want to create a post-human world. Because at the same time that humans are way up here and we need to rely on human reasoning and there's no need for God, humans are also the worst. You see how the irony of this? Humans are the worst. You know, if it wasn't for humans, this beautiful planet that just came into being that God didn't create, this beautiful planet that has life on it, if it wasn't for humans, it would be a much better place. This is real stuff. This is how they really think. Not all of them, obviously. Remember, we go back to, this isn't like everybody's in a box and this is how they all think. This is the secular dominant worldview that plays itself out in, to some people to the extreme, like people that are trying to create a post-human world. Because humans are at the same time the top of the food chain. We can figure everything out. We can create utopia, right? We can create, quote unquote, heaven on earth, and we're perfectible. Yet we also need to get rid of us because we're kind of a scourge on the planet. I mean, there's too many people, isn't there? I don't know. Isn't there just too many people? This is what is being preached by secular humanism. That there's too many people. You know, a name I didn't put up there was Bill Gates. Anybody ever heard of him? See, like Elon Musk is the name, and Mr. Bob and I's generation was Bill Gates, right? He was the richest guy, or whatever. Well, he's very involved in this kind of he's not a politician, He's never been elected to anything. His claim to fame is he built this computer industry and was a billionaire how many times over, right? So what does he really have to add to society outside of that? Obviously a lot, because he's involved in all kinds of governmental organizations, whether in the United States or outside the United States, global governance, World Economic Forum. He was very involved, and if you don't know about this, again, transhumanism's a real thing, kind of scary, right? Some of you might know that in October and November, I think it started in September of 2019, many world leaders got together. Bill Gates was part of this. They had this, kind of funny if you think about it, like, there's so many things that are happening that are like in your face, yet you're told they're not really happening yet, here they are. There's a term for that, it's called gaslighting. Anyway, Bill Gates and many others were involved in this. Hey, what do we do if there's a pandemic, like a worldwide pandemic? You guys, anybody know about this? You heard about it? This was in the fall, 2019. What do we do if there's a pandemic? How do we go about developing vaccines for said virus that might happen? And then a couple months later, there's a virus that comes out of a Wuhan laboratory in China, it goes worldwide, and not only does the virus go worldwide, there's a immediate rush to get like vaccines. Well, they're not vaccines, we know that, because vaccines, anybody that's taken biology knows that vaccines stop the spread of a virus and they stop you from getting it. So remember I used that term gaslighting? We are, this is what we have to overcome, young people. Remember, we're not living in fear. We're learning all this, not to be fearful of it, but to face it. In world history, we just covered Cleopatra. She's the queen of denial. See what I did there? Landon, that was funny. Cleopatra, Egypt, Nile River, queen of denial, queen of denial. I just met her. Thanks, Ben. So, we can't live in a world where we live in fear. We face what we're up against. That's why we're learning all this. And as Christians, we overcome the world, right? We can, should Jesus tarry. We don't know when, or the hour that Christ is returning. So while we're here, we have to speak up, stand firm, be knowledgeable, know what we're up against, not live in fear, not be apathetic, not pretend it's not there. Fight. Wait, are you allowed to do that if you're Christian? Or is Jesus just, wasn't Jesus just a new person? Society, what was going on? We're just, Jesus is love, and we're never supposed to go against what's going on. Are you kidding me? Did you read the Bible? Listen, how much more progress could humans have made, Jamin, if we weren't bogged down by all of these Christians and other religions, by the way, talking about, God and this morality, these ethics that come from Ten Commandments, this repressive list of breaks on our behavior. Speaking of like Freud, like, do not commit adultery. Look, you're sexual beings. Putting these hinders on your behavior about adultery, fornication. What is that? Just be you. So repressive. Pedophilia. Oh, we got this arbitrary age, 18. If he or she's 16, some 16-year-olds fully physically developed. Why are you calling someone a pedophile? Hey, there's a professor I just read recently that thinks the age of accountability should be 12. Oh, well, here's the thing. Someone just went, oh, I don't know about 12. But here's the thing. So, see how this works. if you aim for 12 being accountability, you might get people to start to believe and go along with you that maybe 16 is okay. Right? Because right now you're in big trouble. If you're an adult and you have sexual relations with a 16-year-old, we call that a pedophile, right? Well, if you can get people to start thinking that, hey, you know, some people mature more quickly, even at 12 or 13. Well, if you can get society to go start thinking this way and get rid of all this spiritual and repressive things like the Ten Commandments, people can live more freely. There'll be more happiness and joy in the world. There is no absolute moral code. In this secular world that they've built, I've told you before, people in my generation and the generation before me, even if they weren't Christians, they believed that the Christian way was the best way to live. The Ten Commandments. Who can argue that the Ten Commandments are not a good code to live by? Well, they will. I mean, this arbitrary thing about murder. And by the way, there's no moral code. Morality is biological, not theological. And if that's the case, and then the next thing on there is going to be about, hey, we as humans can figure it out. Morality is just obvious to anyone that's a human being. I mean, look, 1930s, Nazi Germany, it was obvious. Morality is obvious to everybody. Biologically, look at them. Look what the scourge of the earth the Jews are. We just kill them all, exterminate them. Isn't it obvious? It's not theological. Morality is biological. Obvious to all thinking people what's right and wrong. We don't need any code given to us by a non-material being, whether it's Yahweh, Allah, Brahman, the universal spirit. All of that stuff is hindering progress, repressing people, not allowing humans to be totally free to reach the heights we can reach. And by the way, the ultimate height we can reach is this, I guess, get rid of humans. Because aren't humans, what's the problem? Global warming. Imagine this beautiful earth without humans. Then we wouldn't have to worry about climate change. According to them. You know this is all false. Lies. Questions, comments? If you've already run into this, I would love to hear what you've encountered at the next level. I'm trusting and hoping that as you learn this at a place like Cedarville, it's really well grounded in biblical worldview. You learn about these things at a place like YSU, public university, a Christian in name only university. You have to be aware that this is out there and know, again, that we're called as Christians to be light and salt. How good have we done as Christians in preserving godly culture? How much light out there is shining to a world that's lost, and they're lost in this philosophy of life. Again, not that people walk around consciously thinking, hey, I'm going to do this because my worldview says so. No, it's not how it works. How worldview plays out is how you act, what you do, the decisions you make based on what. And if you're not grounded in the biblical worldview, you're going to make decisions just like these people do. Like we said, when it comes to things like adultery. What's the difference between so-called Christians and the secular world when it comes to adultery and divorce? Anybody know? The answer is? What's the difference? Go ahead, just say it. Come on, why you guys? What's the difference when it comes to, we've talked about this before. What's statistically, what's the difference between the Christian and secular world when it comes to things like adultery and divorce? There's, sadly, doesn't seem to be any. How could that be? How could that be unless Christians, professing Christians, obviously aren't living according to a biblical worldview? I think the one thing we put up there is what percent of Christians are actually living a biblical worldview? It was a single digit number, I believe. Is that okay? Is it okay for us to live in this made up idea we have in our minds that we can just keep sometimes self-deluding, tell ourselves we're Christian when all the evidence says we're not? And we're living just like the world. We're thinking just like the world. We're behaving just like the world. And Christ is pretty clear about living like that. You can't serve two masters. You'll never be perfect in this life. But when you strive to be Christ-like, you have to know that this is what the enemy uses. This dominant way of thinking in the world. That's why you're not supposed to be of the world. You got to live in it, but you can't be of it, because it's corrupting. And if you don't know it, how you gonna defend yourself against it? What are you putting the full armor of God on for? What are you protecting yourself from? Or are you in such a comfortable place in your life, like you've learned Jesus loves me, this I know for the Bible tells me so, and Jesus is full of forgiveness and grace and mercy, so I'll just live however I want, and what? What are we doing? Rolling the dice? Flipping the coin, heads I win, tails you lose? Because I'm going to be okay, because Jesus loves me. And he wasn't serious, I guess, when he says you have to live in the world but not be of it. Any other comments? All right, how does secularists look at new spiritualists? The other worldviews, new spirituality. We haven't really studied it yet, and we only know the basics of it. That everything's spiritual, even the desk you're sitting at. You, as a physical being, is actually not, you're not really physical. This is all, the world we perceive as physical is just a construct of our minds, which are informed by, of course, only the spirit realm. This is all an illusion. Everything's spiritual. The opposite of secularism. So secularists look at them and they're like, that's just absurd. Totally absurd that these ignorant, superstitious people are going around living their lives as if the spirit realm is all there is, as opposed to secularists who say there is no spirit realm. So from Christians like Billy Graham to I don't know what you call her, Oprah, we don't take these people seriously. The Dalai Lama, what? Why are those people being included in discussing world problems or how we're going to fix problems of the world when these people are stuck in some made up Dalai Lama? We'll get to that. Marxism. How does the secularist relate to Marxism? Well, the fact is they're closely related. And sometimes when we look at, say, a biblical worldview quiz and the way things are worded, you're like, man, I don't know if that applies to secularism or Marxism, because they are very closely related. When it comes to other worldviews, especially religious ones, the secularist and Marxist are like divided on how do we deal with them. The secularist would probably be more prone to, or is more prone to wanting to intellectualize and win the intellectual argument with debating, like Christopher Hitchens. He's going to win over the people in the crowd that think they're Christian by using his superior intellect and his rhetoric to defeat the Christian narrative. Where a Marxist, with Marxism, you've got to totally eradicate the idea. By the way, when Marxism or communism their brothers, when they take over a country, the first thing that has to go is religion, especially Christianity. This idea that God's going to provide. Because you've got to get rid of that. Because Marxism dictates that we, the people, are going to provide for everyone, from each according to his means, to each according to their needs. And we're going to set up a world. We don't need God to do that. We will set that up. Oh, by the way, we had to make a determination at the end of the first period that the quiz was supposed to be tomorrow, and it got pushed back to Thursday, and now it's Friday. As usual, we didn't get done. Listen, Christianity and Islam, the fact that they believe that the earth was created by some supernatural being, they're just automatically discredited. They don't deserve a place at the table when it comes to education, government. Why are we even allowing Christians in government? Media, for that matter. Remember, MEGA: media, education, government, and the arts. Dominated by secular and or postmodern views. Traditional biblical worldview being eradicated every chance they get. Postmodernists, by the way, reject secularism. Because what's secularism say? God isn't the answers, science is the answer. A postmodern type thinker says, no, you're both wrong. Because guess what? There is no answer. So the spiritual people who are seeking meaning and truth in the metaphysical realm, they're wrong because you're never going to find it. It's a waste of time. And the secular people who are saying that everything can be tested, empiricism and rationalism, and our human intellect can figure everything out, that's not true either. So it's a very cynical, skeptical view of life that says even secularism, it's good that they're not religious or living in this spiritual realm, but they think they're going to find the truth. That's not true either. And you can see that everywhere, right? The same people don't trust the church or God. They don't trust Fauci either. Right? Fauci says if you don't believe him, you don't believe in science. The postmodern type thinker doesn't believe in Fauci either. Everything's hogwash. There is no truth. Why are you trying to find it? Just live your life. YOLO. You do you. Stay out of everybody else's way. Questions, comments? Feedback is not only welcome, it's desired. Trey. Talk to me, Trey.